Mephisto is one of the most purely evil and manipulative villains in the Marvel Universe, a demonic entity who thrives on lies, corruption, and the destruction of souls. While he's often compared to the devil, Mephisto isn't exactly Satan. He's a Hell Lord, a demonic being who rules over his own pocket dimension that resembles hell. He first appeared in Silver Surfer 3 in 1968, and he is less of a traditional supervillain and more of a cosmic level manipulator, always lurking in the shadows, striking deals that ruin lives, literally. Mephisto's greatest weapon isn't brute strength or armies, it's temptation. He thrives on making false bargains, offering desperate people their greatest desires, power or love or a second chance, in exchange for their soul, or something even worse. And he always delivers, but with an evil catch. Whether it's twisting a wish into a curse or demanding impossible sacrifices, Mephisto's goal is always to corrupt, degrade, and own the soul of the person he's helping. One of his most infamous moments came in the One More Day storyline, where Peter Parker, desperate to save Aunt May, agrees to let Mephisto erase his marriage to Mary Jane Watson from existence, in exchange for her survival. And it was a decision that fans hated, because it ended years of storytelling, and it also showed just how cruel Mephisto could be. He didn't want Peter's soul, he wanted his happiness. He wanted to watch Peter live with the pain of loss and regret, forever knowing why he gave up. And that's the kind of villain Mephisto is. And beyond Spider-Man, Mephisto has tormented the Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Scarlet Witch, and in fact, during the Infinity Gauntlet saga, Mephisto tried to manipulate Thanos himself, and he's also heavily tied to Ghost Rider's origin, being the one responsible for Johnny Blaze's transformation, after tricking him into selling his soul. And as far as powers go, Mephisto can manipulate reality and time, reshape memories, trap souls and torment them forever, take on any form and create illusions, summon demons and control armies of the damned, and regenerate and resurrect himself indefinitely, as long as evil and sin exist. And what makes Mephisto especially evil isn't just what he does, it's why he does it. He doesn't want to conquer the world or build empires, he just wants to watch people suffer, fall, and lose themselves. He feeds off pain, sin, and despair like a parasite. He's a smiling, smooth-talking force of corruption that destroys lives just because he can. The Green Goblin. He's not just one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies, he is one of the most vile, cruel and deranged villains in all of Marvel Comics. Beneath the Goblin mask is Norman Osborn, a wealthy industrialist, scientific genius, and perhaps, most dangerously, a man whose mind is completely unhinged. First appearing in The Amazing Spider-Man 14, the Green Goblin has become the symbol of chaos, pushing Peter Parker to his emotional and moral limits. Norman began as the head of Oscorp Industries, a brilliant but cutthroat businessman who sought greater power through experimental enhancement. But after exposing himself to a strength-augmenting serum, Norman gained superhuman strength, agility, and a healing factor, but at the cost of his sanity. The serum shattered his mind, unleashing the Green Goblin persona, a monstrous alter ego obsessed with tormenting and destroying Spider-Man. But he doesn't just want to beat Spider-Man, he wants to break him. He targets Peter's loved ones, stalks him in and out of the costume, and treats the battle as a sick, twisted game. He wants suffering, and he's willing to go to horrifying lengths to achieve it. His most infamous act came in the legendary The Night Gwen Stacy died, when he threw Gwen Stacy off the George Washington Bridge, resulting in one of the most traumatic moments in comic book history. And this wasn't a move to achieve world domination, it was a message for Peter Parker personally. I know who you are, I can reach who you love, and I will take everything from you. And as the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn uses pumpkin bombs, often rigged to explode or emit deadly gases, razor bats and electroshock gloves, and his infamous Goblin Glider, a flying weaponized vehicle, and he has superhuman strength, stamina and reflexes thanks to the Goblin Serum. But what truly makes him one of Marvel's most evil villains is that even without the costume, Norman Osborn is still a monster. He's been the head of Hammer, led the Dark Avengers, impersonated Iron Man, and manipulated world governments, all while presenting himself as a savior. And the Green Goblin is the kind of villain who never stays dead and never stops plotting. Even when he's defeated, you know he's still watching, still planning the next tragedy. Thanos. He's arguably Marvel's most iconic cosmic villain, and his goals are often far more philosophical and infinitely more deadly. Nicknamed the Mad Titan, Thanos debuted in Iron Man 55 in 1973. From the moment he appeared, he was a force of nature, someone who could challenge gods and reshape reality. Born on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, Thanos is part of the Eternals, but unlike the others, Thanos was born with a deviant gene, giving him his distinct monstrous appearance and marking him as an outcast. Isolated and obsessed with death from a young age, Thanos developed a morbid fascination with nihilism and cosmic destruction, eventually falling in love with the physical embodiment of death herself. And driven by this obsession, Thanos has committed unimaginable atrocities. In the comics, he once wiped out half of all life in the universe, using the Infinity Gauntlet, which housed the 6 Infinity Gems. But here's the twisted part. He didn't do it for conquest, he did it to impress death. So for Thanos, mass genocide was a romantic gesture. And even without the gauntlet, Thanos possesses superhuman strength and durability, genius-level intellect, and mastery of science, mysticism and technology, and cosmic-level energy manipulation. And what makes Thanos so evil is that he truly believes he's doing the right thing. He sees existence as chaotic, wasteful, and unsustainable. Whether it's for Death's love or to balance the universe, his logic is always chillingly calm. And while the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Thanos gave him a more utilitarian motivation, wanting to eliminate half of all life to conserve resources, the comic version kills for the sake of cosmic despair and obsession. And he doesn't want to save the universe, he wants to end it. He's a cosmic idea, a symbol of inevitable death and existential dread. He's what happens when a god loses empathy but gains purpose, making him one of the most evil and unforgettable figures in all of Marvel lore. Cassandra Nova. She is one of the most twisted and terrifying villains the X-Men have ever faced. A psychic parasite born without a body who exists solely to destroy everything that makes life meaningful. She first appeared in New X-Men 114 in 2001 and instantly redefined what it meant to be an X-Men villain. Unlike Magneto or Apocalypse, who have ideologies or grand visions, Cassandra Nova is pure malice and nihilism wrapped in a deceptively calm demeanor and psychic power that rivals and even surpasses Professor X himself. Cassandra is technically Charles Xavier's twin, but not in the traditional sense. She's a Momodre, a being from a dimension of thought, who tried to take over Charles' body in the womb. Since in her presence, Xavier lashed out with his mind, still unborn, and caused her body to miscarry. But she didn't die. Instead, her consciousness clung to life, slowly rebuilding a physical form over the years, fueled by rage and the desire to destroy everything Charles Xavier ever loved. And what makes Cassandra Nova so evil isn't just her power. It's her complete lack of empathy. She doesn't hate mutants because she fears them like humans often do. She hates life itself, and she sees the X-Men and their dream as a diseased world purging. And with her Omega-level telepathy, she has manipulated, tortured, and controlled some of the most powerful minds on Earth. She once took over the mind of Donald Trask, a descendant of the creator of the Sentinels, and used his DNA to reactivate a fleet of wild Sentinels, which she sent to Genosha, killing 16 million mutants in minutes. And that wasn't an act of war, it was genocide, and she didn't blink doing it. Her psychic abilities are off the charts, with Omega-level telepathy rivaling Professor X, mental possession and manipulation, astral projection and body swapping, regeneration, and pseudo-immortality, as she can rebuild herself even after destruction, and emotionless intellect, making her cold, calculated, and impossible to reason with. And in her battle with the X-Men, turned people against each other and forced Xavier to walk again just so she could cripple him herself. And she inverted the dream of peaceful coexistence into a nightmare, and she did it with a calm, terrifying smile. She often appears collected, even motherly, but her words are full of venom, and her actions speak of a deep existential hatred for existence itself. She wants to unmake things, to erase hope, peace and connection piece by piece. And in the Marvel universe that is filled with godlike villains and intergalactic threats, Cassandra Nova stands apart as one of the most psychologically disturbing and morally bankrupt. She is what happens when thought itself turns evil. And she's not just a threat to mutants, she's a threat to what it means to be human. Carnage. He is one of the most violently sadistic and irredeemable villains in Marvel. Born from the offspring of the Venom symbiote and bonded to the serial killer Cletus Cassidy, Carnage represents the worst traits of both species, symbiotes and humans, amplified to horrifying extremes. He first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 361 and immediately positioned himself as a darker, deadlier shadow of Venom. Cletus Cassidy was already a monster before he ever touched a symbiote. As a child, he murdered his grandmother, tortured animals, and burned down his orphanage. He believed life was meaningless, and chaos was the only truth. So when the Carnage symbiote bonded with him, unlike Venom, which still holds some moral boundaries, it found a host who completely embraced its hunger and savagery. The result was something Spider-Man has never faced before, a being of pure evil with no motive other than to kill, destroy, and cause pain. Carnage is stronger, faster, and more unpredictable than both Spider-Man and Venom. and his symbiote can form deadly weapons from its own flesh, create tentacles, blades, and spikes, and is often immune to traditional weaknesses, like sonic attacks and fire due to his deeper bond with Cassidy. But it's not just the power that makes Carnage terrifying, it's the mindset. Cassidy doesn't want control, revenge, or power, he kills for fun, and he wants everyone to see it, to feel it, to be consumed by the same chaos he lives in. And over the years, Carnage has left a bloody trail across the Marvel Universe, from mass murdering civilians to taking on entire cities, and he's fought Spider-Man, Venom, Deadpool, and even the Avengers. And in storylines like Maximum Carnage, he leads a cult-like group of killers, spreading death like wildfire across New York. And in Absolute Carnage, he resurrects himself and becomes stronger than ever, hunting down every former symbiote host to tear their codices from their spines. And yet what makes Carnage so chilling isn't just what he does, it's that he enjoys every moment of it. There's no redemption arc, no inner conflict. He's not a villain trying to prove a point. He's a serial killer with the powers of an alien war machine, and a complete lack of empathy or restraint. So Carnage is a reminder that sometimes evil is just evil. Purple Man. He's horrifying and evil because of what he takes from people, their will, their freedom, and their sanity. First introduced in Daredevil 4, Purple Man is often considered a minor villain on paper, but in practice, you don't want to be in the same room with him. So Killgrave was a former spy who was exposed to a mysterious chemical that turned his skin pale purple, and gave him the power of absolute mind control. Through pheromone-based manipulation, anyone who hears his voice becomes completely susceptible to his will, forced to obey no matter how horrific the command. There's no resisting him. Once he speaks, your mind is no longer your own. What makes Killgrave so uniquely evil is how he chooses to use his power, as he uses his abilities to satisfy his twisted desires, often forcing people to degrade themselves, betray their loved ones, or commit atrocities, all while he watches, amused. His crimes are deeply personal, violating people on a psychological level, and his most disturbing legacy lies with Jessica Jones, whom he mentally enslaved for months, stripping her of her identity and turning her into a puppet for his amusement. He forced her into a fake relationship, controlled her every move, and shattered her sense of agency. It wasn't about love, it was about ownership, and when she finally broke free, the trauma lingered for years, defining her character and showing readers just how horrifying Killgrave truly is. Purple Man doesn't have an endgame. He just wants to control individuals, to hurt, humiliate, and destroy them from the inside out. And in the Jessica Jones TV series, David Tennant's portrayal of Killgrave showed just how dangerous and unnerving he can be. Even when not yelling or fighting, his very presence creates tension. He represents the ultimate violation, someone who strips away your ability to say no. Red Skull. He's a figure who embodies the absolute worst of humanity. He is hatred made flesh. First appearing in Captain America Comics 7 in 1941, he was introduced during World War II as a Nazi agent and Hitler's right hand, and over the decades, he has only grown more vile, more dangerous, and more relevant as a symbol of evil without remorse. He was an orphan raised in brutality, who found meaning in Nazi ideology, and became a fanatical enforcer of fascism and genocide. Chosen by Hitler himself to be the embodiment of Nazi ideals, Schmidt adopted the Red Skull persona, donning a horrifying red mask, which eventually became his real face, and rising to become a master manipulator, tactician, and mass murderer. Red Skull wants to purify the world through violence, hate, and authoritarian control. What makes him especially terrifying is that he has no powers, yet he is capable of bringing down gods and legends through sheer cruelty, manipulation, and planning. And over the years he has stolen the Cosmic Cube, aka the Tesseract, and reshaped reality to his will, created sleeper agents and infiltrated governments, orchestrated terrorist plots that have wiped out thousands, and cloned Steve Rogers' body and transferred his own mind into it, and even merged with Professor X's brain, gaining Omega-level telepathic abilities and launching the Red Onslaught event. And his ideology is his greatest weapon. He wants to break people mentally and morally. And he's one of the few Marvel villains who represents real-world horrors. Fascism, racism, genocide, and oppression. And unlike other villains who evolve or sometimes redeem themselves, Red Skull remains a constant. He doesn't change. He waits, infecting societies with hate until the moment to strike again. And his greatest enemy, of course, is the symbol of freedom, compassion, and hope, Captain America. And their rivalry is more than just hero versus villain, it's ideology versus ideology, with Cap fighting for unity and Skull fighting for dominance and purity. And every time Captain stands tall, Red Skull is there, trying to prove that hate can be killed. It has to be constantly fought. So whether wielding cosmic artifacts, corruption minds, or leading armies of fascists, Red Skull is one of the purest embodiments of evil in the Marvel Universe. He's not a villain you love to hate, he's a villain you just hate, because that's exactly what he wants to spread. The Maker. He's easily one of the most intelligent and dangerous evil variants ever created. He's a twisted version of Reed Richards, but unlike his Earth 616 counterpart, who uses his genius to protect the world, the Maker uses his intelligence to dominate, manipulate, and reshape reality in his own image. He's terrifyingly calculated, emotionally detached, and utterly convinced he knows what's best for existence. Originally, Reed Richards of Earth 1610 began his life as a hero, much like the classic Reed. He was a gifted, hopeful young man who formed the Ultimate Fantastic Four and helped defend the world alongside his teammates. But over time, after enduring countless tragedies, including an abusive childhood, the betrayal of his closest allies, the collapse of society, and the loss of his family, his faith in humanity shattered. And what emerged from that despair was the Maker. The Maker believes that the world can only be saved through total transformation, and he's more than willing to destroy, kill, and experiment on entire civilizations to achieve that vision. And after faking his death and sharing his identity as a hero, he re-emerged wearing a disturbing, elongated helmet, symbolizing his rebirth as something inhuman. And his goals shifted from exploration and protection to godlike control over time, evolution, and the multiverse itself. And what truly makes the Maker evil, it's what he chooses to do. He sees people as pawns or test subjects, not lives worth protection. He has built horrific biological weapons, experimented on alternate versions of his loved ones, and attempted to reshape the multiverse into a single, unified structure under his control, believing that free will and emotion are flaws that must be corrected. And after the Ultimate Universe collapsed during Secret Wars 2015, the Maker survived and crossed into Earth 616, the main Marvel Universe. And there he continued his dark work in secret, forming shadow organizations, cloning gods, and tearing holes in reality itself. The Maker genuinely believes he's right, that everything he's doing, no matter how monstrous, is for the greater good. And if Reed Richards is the smartest man alive with a heart of gold, the Maker is what happens when that same intelligence is unchained from humanity. He's not just Reed gone bad, he's Reed perfected into something alien, calculating, and cold. Magus. An evil future version of Adam Warlock who has embraced ultimate power and abandoned all morality. First appeared in Strange Tales 178 in 1975 and quickly established himself as one of the most dangerous beings in the Marvel Universe. Magus is literally Adam Warlock's potential future self, a version of him who has succumbed to his darkest desires and evolved into a tyrannical cosmic god. Magus was once Adam Warlock, a genetically engineered being created by Earth scientists to be the perfect human. However, after encountering the Soul Gem, later known as the Soul Stone, Adam's fate became intertwined with the forces of life, death, and cosmic destiny. At some point in an alternate timeline, Adam Warlock lived long enough to become corrupt, ruthless, and power-hungry, transforming into Magus, a being who not only rules galaxies, but also enslaves entire civilizations through his twisted fate. And what makes him so horrifying is that he isn't just a conqueror, he is a cult leader and a godlike being, ruling over the Universal Church of Truth, a vast intergalactic empire that worships him as their supreme deity. His followers, fanatical and unquestioning, spread his influence across the universe, converting or exterminating anyone who opposes him. And he doesn't just rule through strength, he controls minds, brainwashing entire planets into submission. And his powers are staggering, surpassing even Adam Warlock's. He possesses god-level strength and durability, reality manipulation, shape-shifting as he can morph his body at will, often appearing with monstrous nightmarish features, and also cosmic awareness as he can perceive and manipulate events across time and space, giving him near omniscience. And when he is destroyed, Magus always finds a way to return, as he exists across multiple timelines. So basically he is inevitable, and in multiple storylines, Adam has battled Magus, only to realize that the more he tries to escape his destiny, the closer he comes to becoming him. And to prevent this, Warlock has even killed his own future self, before he could transform. But as I said a few seconds back, Magus always finds a way back. And his greatest enemy is not just Adam, but also cosmic beings like Thanos, who recognize that his existence threatens the balance of the universe. And while Thanos seeks power for his own reasons, Magus seeks power for power's sake, a tyrant whose only goal is domination without limit. He is one of the most terrifying examples of an evil variant. He represents the darkest possibility of what happens when absolute power meets absolute corruption.